Funding for this program provided by...
Hello folks, and welcome to After Hours Woodworking. I'm your host, Chad Stanton. Now, I do the show every Wednesday, but last week I took off. My own personal workload on jobs for customers was so big, I didn't have time to get to this. And in fact, this episode, you're seeing it on the 4th of July. I'm filming this on the weekend prior to it, and it is really, really hot. So it's about 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm filming this so the shop doesn't heat up and you don't see me as a pool of sweat standing here. But I'm going to go over with you today some of the stuff that I have been doing in the shop and out on job sites for the past week. I'm going to answer some email questions for you and talk a little bit about some tools, and also, should you own it, a product that I think you will be very interested in. Okay, so this past week I had those big offices to paint, and I was dreading it because Dan and I built the interior walls for the individual offices, and they're 8 foot high, but the perimeter walls are 15 foot high, and they wanted us to paint it, and I was really dreading it because it looked like a big job. You know what? It wasn't bad at all. I actually had the whole thing painted in a day and a half. I mean, I think I had like under 14 hours in it. It went really quick. And Dan wasn't available to help me on it. He was off doing another job. So, yeah, painted the whole thing myself. Was pretty hot up there because the air conditions broke, but that's all right. So that was completed. I also had 3 cabinet cut-down jobs to do. I had one for a house that I'm doing. I had a new customer that bought a house, and then I had a contractor through one of the big box stores. He was remodeling a kitchen and needed it cut down. And so that keeps me pretty busy in the shop. It pays very well, and I'll talk a little bit about that more later in the shop, or in the show. But I'm going to put a couple of links below because I did some videos, I don't know, I think last year, on how to cut these cabinets down, and then there's a second video of how you can go out and get good money for doing this. It pays rather well. So if you're looking to do something just part-time, I tell you how to go out and get the business doing it. So like I said, I did 3 this week. The one was really tricky because, and I will advise you on this. Some of the older homes, this particular home was built in the 60s, some of the older homes, the cabinets were like built on site. Like now when you go and buy cabinets, you can just, mix and match and screw them all together. These were built all on site. So the top rail goes across the whole thing, and the bottom rail, and so on. So I literally had to, in their home, chop that all up, and then here in the shop, redo the doors, and then put it all back together. So there's a photo of that there. Okay, so let's see. Did the painting? Did the cabinets? So I once a week I get together with a couple of my buddies, Dennis Laney and Les Elsey. Les is having some health issues, and his big goal and desire is to finish some of the furniture pieces that he's started. Some of them he's been working on for over 10 years. But he really wants to see them done. So Dennis and I, Dennis goes over twice a week, I go over once a week, and we are Les's apprentice, I guess. Les tells us what to do. And Les has so much knowledge. The guy is an amazing, amazing woodworker, an amazing man, just very nice, almost to a fault. But it's for me, I look forward to it every week because I walk away learning so much. It's amazing. And Dennis this week had a whole bunch of books that he gave me. He's thinning out his library. I mean, a whole bunch. These are just a couple that I grabbed. He probably gave me like 20 books or so. But some of the stuff is topics that we talk here on the show. Geometry. There's some geometry. This one, I love carving. I wouldn't say I'm very good at carving, but I love carving. And so he gave me a book on some carving, and then he gave me these books. I first picked it up and I'm like, what? Because it's all in French. I mean, there's not a single word in it I can read. But it's not so much about the words as it is the pictures and the templates and stuff in here. There's some great profiles of moldings and patterns for stuff. So he gave me like 3 or 4 of these books all in French, but really, really neat stuff in it. So obviously a reference for future work that I do. So that's what I did this past week. Now, let's see. Trying to remember where we were 2 weeks ago on this. I remember we talked about the Festool track saw. And I think this was one of the should you own it topics. And as I had mentioned, it's a great saw. You're not going to find a nicer saw, but it comes at a pretty steep price tag. So my advice always is buy it if you can afford it. Don't go into debt for any of this stuff, especially if it's your hobby. But I wanted to point out how you could use your regular circular saw to produce some fine cuts like the track saw. Because let's face it, I've been doing this for 20 years. This track saw has not been here in the States that long, and it's possible to get very good clean cuts without spending a fortune. This just makes it a little easier, a little faster. So let's talk about how we can do that. Now, the one thing with the track saw that's pretty cool, you have to buy the track. I think of the Festool as kind of like the Lego system. You can get one, but to really make everything work together, you got to buy all the accessories. But you can see that the saw fits right on it. It's got a couple of guides on the track. It doesn't wiggle, it doesn't move, and the blade is lined up perfectly with the edge of the guide. So you simply place the guide down on a piece of wood and cut. What's neat about the guide is it has, like, on the bottom, it's kind of rubber, a little tacky type of thing. I'm not sure what it is, but it grips the wood. So when you put it down, it doesn't really move. There's no need to put clamps down on it. So that's a time saver in itself. But here's what I always do. So you can make your own, I guess, guide. It's not really a track, but it's a guide. So I use a piece of MDF. MDF is more stable than plywood or solid wood by all means, but I really don't like MDF. And you can see I have a cleat on here. It acts as a fence. Now, for your very first one you're making, you're going to make the bottom plate really wide, because here's what you do. When I put my circular saw on there, well, the circular saw rides against this fence, and the first cut that I go through with the saw, it's going to cut off the waste of that bottom. What that does is, just like on the track saw, it's going to leave this edge perfectly lined up with the saw blade. So you don't have to, if you got your line on the plywood, you don't have to do any offsetting, the distance from the edge to the blade. You don't have to do none of that. You can just put this on there, clamp it down, and go. Just make sure you're on the right side of the line to be cutting, because you do have to compensate. Even with the track saw, you have to compensate for the thickness of that blade. You don't want that on, the good side. You want that on the waste side. But anyway, this works fantastic, and I've done it for years and years and years. I thought one time about putting sandpaper on the bottom of this, so I thought maybe I could skip using the clamps, like the sandpaper would grip. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but more often than not, what happened was I would take this and either set it down like that or pull it up like that, and the sandpaper would scratch the wood. So it didn't turn out to be the greatest idea. The other neat thing about the track saw is it has a little feature on it that helps press the wood before it cuts giving you a very clean cross cut on wood or plywood. And that's, I think, one of the nice features of the saw. But again, there's ways around that. This is what I've done for years. So I have a piece of plywood here, and there's 3 things you can do to prevent this. Now, when you're cutting with the grain, it's going to work just fine. The circular saw and that guide will work just fine. It's when we go across the grain, because as the saw blade is coming up, it's busting through those fibers, and it'll leave a rough edge there. So what most people will do is they'll take tape, and you can put tape across this, and that will help hold those fibers down for a clean cut. The other thing you can do is you can go ahead and pre-cut the fibers by, with a knife and a straight edge, score the wood a couple of times. Now you've already severed those fibers, so there's no reason for them to blow out. The last thing that I do is I'll make 2 cuts. It's called a score cut. So the first cut, as it's going across, I put it in maybe 1/8, 1/16 of an inch, just real light. Cuts to the top fibers, then I go back, set the depth all the way through to cut it, and then that comes out beautiful. You get beautiful results. So there you are, a couple of tips on how you can use your regular circular saw to perform like a Festool track saw. All right, I had another question come in this week. Let me take a look at my notes, make sure I'm not jumping around. Yes, so Daniel Antonio Overdo. I don't know. You guys know I'm terrible with names. Anyway, Daniel sent in some pictures. He's fairly new to woodworking, and he had made a bench, and a sitting bench, not a workbench, like a sitting bench, chair type thing. And he was concerned about the angle with the legs and the lean of the back. He was having a hard time doing it, trying to make it strong and sturdy. Now, I got to say that making chairs is really a high step up in woodworking, okay? Because you're working with a lot of angles, you're working with geometry, it has to be strong and yet light. So if you guys haven't made a chair, trust me, they can be difficult and frustrating. But I think chairs are a great way of improving your woodworking, and so here's a little solution to help Daniel and the rest of you. So chairs are made up of splay and rake. So if you're looking at the front of a chair, the angles going out, that is the splay, and that gives for better stability. If you're looking at the chair from the side, you'll notice that the front and back legs go out, and that's the rake. All right, and many times those angles are close but different. Now you also have on the chair, you want the back of the chair to lean a little so it's comfortable. You don't want to be sitting in it real stiff. So here's what I did. I did this back when I did the show, I Can Do That. We made several projects on there, and I did a bench, a couple chairs, and so this was a technique that I found. You start off with a wider board than what you want to end up with. So this is going to be the back leg and the part of the back. And then what I do is I find the height of where the seat will be. And in this case, I made this 3.5 inches. So you notice I went from the corner here up and down, and same thing for the back. So what this does is this is giving me some of that rake. It's also giving me some of that lean, and obviously the wider the board on this, you could get a bigger angle out of it. And for the most part, you keep most of the strength of the grain of the wood going for it. If you go too extreme, it's going to break. But in this case, it's going to be plenty fine. A lot of strength in it. It not only looks good, it's easy to do. So you could just, with a jigsaw, bandsaw, whatever, cut this part off, and there you go. You got the leg and the back all in one piece of wood. All right, so that wraps up the questions I had for this week. If anyone else has some questions, feel free to email me at stantonfinefurniture@gmail.com. Ask your questions. I'll help you work through the problems, either a project you're doing or just something you've kind of wondered about. I had a question come in just this morning from Terry Krelling, I believe, and we've been doing the Dovetail series video, and he asked me about, what's it mean, cut to the line? So I answered it, and he really liked the answer. He wanted me to include that in the video series I've been doing on dovetails, which I hope to do. Hopefully on Friday you'll have the video of me showing all the steps for cutting out the dovetails. Leading up to that, we talked about the layout of them. We talked about the preparation of the material for it. So this Friday, fingers crossed, we'll have that whole video of how to cut it out, and I'll make sure to mention what it means by cutting to the line on that. All right, so let's get into should you own it? Should you own it? So you've heard me talk about this product probably at least a month ago, and this is from CrystaLac. Now, I've used CrystaLac's top coat earlier this year. It's water-based. I'm trying to move away from the oil-based products, more into the water-based. It's healthier for the environment, so I'm told. Cleanup's a whole lot easier, and so CrystaLac sent me a kit. Now I got to tell you, this is not the official kit. All right, he put a bunch of stuff together and sent it out to me. I've got looks like 2, 4, 6, 8 different dyes in here. He sent some clear gel stains. So this is the base for the stain that I got to make. He also sent it's a universal white, like paint, if you will. That's exactly what it is, paint. And then a top coat, a clear coat. It also came with some measuring spoons and a little recipe booklet. So this was a particular interest to me because on the cabinets that I was talking about earlier, after I cut those panels down and some of the styles, I have to match the color of the stain to make it look like I'd never been there, right? Well, you can go to the store and you can look at the little, even on this, you can look at the little sample on the chart and go, oh, well, that looks like what I want. And you buy it and you get home and you open the can and it's nowhere near it, because you got a couple problems there. One, the color that you're seeing on the pamphlet, that can vary from printer to printer, whoever makes these. Same with the color on the label of the can. The other thing, too, is the stain can react different to different woods. Something like oak, you can put it on and the color will look really dark. You can put it on something else like, maple, and it may not penetrate as deep. So this was a kit that allowed me to mix my own colors. Now, I have to say, there was a little bit of a learning curve to it for me. So what I did was I first looked on this chart, and I will say, if CrystaLac is paying attention, this chart, the color is a little small. So as I'm trying to hold it up to my cabinet door, it would have been just a little bit nicer if it was a little bit bigger in size. But anyhow, so I picked out a color that I thought was pretty close, and I think I picked, I don't remember if it was American Maple or what. But so the color that I picked, it tells you the amount and the colors for mixing it together. And this makes this recipe booklet is set up for the quantities of 16 ounces or a pint. Okay. Well, I didn't need that much. I didn't need a pint because I'm just literally touching up the bottom of a panel. So what I wound up doing was I would use the color number reference, and then I would just add drop by drop and mix up a little tablespoon or teaspoon until it got right. And then I sampled it on some wood. Now, I don't know if you can see it from there, but I probably have, 8 different tries at it for the color that I was trying to achieve. And it was coming up light. And I didn't want to just keep adding more dye to it to make it darker. So this is what was cool about it. The color looked right in my cup. But as I put it on, it was just too light. And like I said, I didn't want to add more product. So it dries pretty quick because it's water-based. And I could put another coat on it, and it gets darker. And another coat, and darker and darker. So I could build it up to the exact color that I wanted. Something different that I've never had before with the penetrating stains. Once that stain penetrates into the wood, in theory, the wood's not going to absorb anymore. So what you got color-wise is it. Now, some of the things on the cans, I think like Minwax, I read somewhere that if you wait 8 hours or wait a day or two, you go back, you can put some more on. It'll get a little bit darker. I've never had luck with that. I've done some things kind of like, I don't know if it's cheating, but I've put a top coat on. I'll sand the top coat, and I can put a little bit more stain in. It gets a little darker because when I sand the top coat, it makes like fine little grooves, and then that stain is basically resting in those grooves, and I gotta let that dry and put another top coat on. To me, that's kind of like cheating. There's also a method called toning, where you can mix the stain into the finish, the top coat, and so when these guys will spray, they're doing 2-in-1 right there. I don't like toning. The reason being is, yes, it's fast, because you're doing 2 steps in one, but if you should ever bump your chair or table into something, it's going to flake the finish off, and there goes your color too. You're right back down to the bare wood. At least if you put the stain in the wood and you bump it, you might flake the finish off, but you're still going to maintain the color. So I'm not a fan of toning. But at any rate, this was cool. This was really cool, and I love it because it's now something I can do with these cabinet cut downs. I can work that color right up to the depth and tone that I want. So I really like it. I'm not sure where all you are at with it, but if you're really trying to get a specific color, I've had that happen before too. I've bought stains at the store that I love, I fall in love with. This happened twice to me. Twice. And then for whatever reason, the company discontinues the color. And now I can't get it anymore. But with something like this, I could literally mix it up to make a whole pint or quart or whatever size I want. So if you guys are interested, I'm also putting this link in the description down below. And I think CrystaLac had told me before that if you buy something, your first purchase at checkout, like promo code or something, if you type my name, Chad Stanton, you'll get 10% off, which was nice of them. And I said, well, how much to get 50% off? And I had to buy a whole lot at that point. So anyhow, give it a try. The cleanup was great. I got to say, the top coat I've used before, it is smooth. It lays down great. It's crystal clear, and it's hard. I like that. I think they said it's a polyurethane blend. So it's not like just a regular water-based poly. They add some, I'm going to screw this up, add some kind of resin or something into it to make it hard. But it is clear. It's nice. So anyhow, there you are. Should you own it? I would recommend it as a yes. All right. Okay. So question of the week. As I clean this up, I'm going to talk a little to you. Last week, I think I had on the question of the week to vote on the title for the show, and the title of After Hours Woodworking was number one. You all voted that to be number one, so we're going to keep going with that. The number two vote that came in was Midweek Meetup which is nice. So I'm going to use that in the description or in the title for this. I'm going to take all your guys' old suggestions. I have them still written down, and I think I'm going to use them each week as a title. But the official name of the show is After Hours Woodworking. All right, so I've got something I think would be kind of fun this week for us to do. So let me grab this. My wife, for me this past week, got me a gift card, a $100 gift card from Woodcraft. All right, and I thought, well, what do I want? What do I want? I have my tools and I have everything that I feel I want, and I thought this would be a great opportunity for you guys to tell me what to buy. So I won't limit it to the $100. That's what this card is, $100. I'll go up to a total of $300. So I'll throw in $200 more. And if there's a tool or a product that you've been wondering about, not sure if you wanted to spend the money, tell me what your thoughts are. If I get it, I'll use it, and then I'll give my honest review of it here, so should you own it. And it'll be the tool or product that you guys suggest. So get on Woodcraft's website, and boy, Woodcraft's got to be loving me for this, right? I mean, I am just pimping them at this point. But get on their website, take a look through it, and suggest some possibilities for me. And I'll choose the one that I think would be obviously the best for me. Maybe I already have the tool, or maybe it's something I never ever do. But anyhow, yeah, it'd be fun. I'd be curious to see what it is that you guys have been wanting to buy but weren't real sure. Because I know sometimes reviews online, when you read them over to the side, they're kind of one-sided, or maybe they're written by the company employees. It's great, it's great, it's great. And so you sometimes wonder how real are the reviews. But hopefully you've seen here on the show that I try and be really open and fair on the stuff. So there you go. Leave your comments below. Any questions, feel free to email me at stantonfinefurniture@gmail.com. Hopefully this Friday I'll have that dovetail video wrapped up and finished for you guys. And I think that's about it. So until next time, keep on dancing.